Dave Casler, amateur radio call sign KE0OG, coming to you from Ridgway, Colorado. And tonight is the Thursday night live stream. We start at 6:45 Mountain Standard Time here in California. That's U.S. Mountain Standard Time, not Australian. And got a wish from Chris Wilson, who says Happy Friday from the future, from VK to NAP. Of course, they're across the international date line, so it's already tomorrow there in Australia. Are you attending Hamcation in Orlando this week? Oh, or this year? See, this is the Hamcation, the Orlando Hamcation chart, and it's coming up soon in February. I looked it up. It's too far to drive, and we'd like to take our RV if we could. We'd take about a week to get there for a 3-day event and then a week to get back, which is not by itself undoable, but it does make it very difficult for my wife, who has a number of regular things that she's involved with. So we won't be going to Hamcation. We do plan on going to Dayton for Hamvention. That's coming up in May. And we will take the RV to that. And we are going next week, late next week, to New Mexico. Not New Mexico. Well, we'll probably touch New Mexico. Going to Arizona to Quartz Fest, which will be, let's see, the 23rd through the 29th. And looking forward to better weather down there. And also looking forward to meeting lots of hams. A number of other YouTubers are going to be there too. And so it should be very interesting to get to meet lots and lots of Augies and lots of other YouTubers and so on. The ARRL will be represented by the Southwestern High Poobah, whoever he is. I've met him a couple times. Met him out at Pacificon, and he'll be coming out here. I don't know if Josh Nass is going, Hoshnazi. I'm pretty sure that W7AGE Randy is going. I think K6, what's his, can't remember it. His call sign is going, and there are others. Kevin Laughlin will be there. So it should be a good time had by all, and we're looking forward to it. We like during the winter to get out of town if we can. For Christmas, we went over to Moab, Utah. And I did a live stream from there using my cell phone because it was the only thing that would work. Their system at the campground seemed to block live streams going out. So I had to circumvent that and just use the cell phone. Now, this does pose a problem. Normally, the January giveaway, this is the January giveaway number 6. Keep those cards and letters coming, folks. This is the giveaway number 6. It's one of those little radios that you can turn on or crank, crank type radio that'll give it power to operate. It works on AM, FM, and a little bit of the weather band too, I believe. FM, AM, the weather band. It will also play music from a memory stick, and it can, I think you're able to charge your cell phone from this. Okay, so this is a nice little device. Even has a flashlight on it. Although this flashlight, as you can see, when I turn it on and point it at the wall behind me, you see how small that little thing is, but it's flashlight. Okay, so this is something that I reviewed some time ago and will be giving away this month. But we can't do it on the last Thursday of the month because I'll be in Quartzsite and thus will not have access to the mail that comes during that last week. So we are going to postpone the drawing until the following Thursday, which will be technically in March 3rd, but that way everybody who enters, even those who enter at the last minute, will have a chance to be in. This is the 6th giveaway. I hope it's pretty cool. Tell your friends about it. You don't have to be an Augie to enter. Any ham can enter, and if they win, they get the prize. And I try very hard to protect people's privacy. All of the envelopes that come in, and this is what I've got so far, all these envelopes, we pick the winner, and then all the other envelopes go into the shredder. Okay? So there's privacy. I don't keep anything. I don't keep even a count. And then the winner, I put their entry into the box when I send the box off. So that way we have 100% privacy, which I know is very important for a lot of people, including myself. So let's see what we've got rolling up here. We've got Brian Victor Alpha 7 WX, EA K6SDW in Northern California, Optical Man Jeff, regular, KE0OG, says hi Dave and hello Augies from Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Brad Whiteley says good day from AC4 Zulu Papa outside Richmond. And Daniel Yerke says hello everyone. Steve Haynes, good evening from Wake Forest, he's KN4 CWJ. John Mills is from La Palma in the Canary Islands, and I understand that the volcano there has quit, at least for the time being. It's quit, so they can get into recovery now. One of the big problems they've got to do is get rid of a couple feet of ash covering everything, so they can get back down to their roads and their houses and all that sort of stuff. Robert Sabato, K2WRD, in northern New Jersey, says hello. Chris Wilson, happy Friday from the future. He's BK2NAP. Am I attending Hamcation? No, I'm not, but I will be attending Hamvention. West Virginia, AB8AS, Troy Harrison, says good evening, Dave, from KC9E. Khalid Tarauna says good day from the country of JY, which is Jordan, if I remember right. Hello, how are you? Showing that ham radio is a worldwide hobby. James KI50EB says hello. Trey Furt says I'm in the house. John Ward says to hello from W30 or OJ. Hi everyone from the land of 10,000 lakes, which would be upper Michigan, I think. Ed Fry is from Pennsylvania. And Trey is in Warner Robins. Pardon me, I'm going to do a cough. I need to make an announcement, I guess. Sorry, I should pause that. I've been sick. That's why there aren't any videos up right now. We had 3 or 4 videos ahead, and the system ran through that. I think the last one was on Wednesday. And then there are some that need to be edited, But I told my assistant, Callum, not to come. I checked twice that this is not COVID. My wife got tested for COVID down at the doctor's office today, and my doctor doesn't seem to believe the little tests that you can buy at the. We can FedEx you for less than the cost of gas this year. Yeah. Evening from Pine Brook. Oh, I want to mention something that came in the mail. This. Notice that I've crossed out the from, except that it's from Texas. And this is the new QDX from QRP Labs. It's a whisper rig that I think you can use with a Raspberry Pi and do whisper. And I couldn't get a kit. So this guy from Texas sent me his from the first round. They've had 2 rounds of selling the kits. Second round took only 5 minutes. They've had 2 rounds selling the kits. They're extremely hard to get. And so I mentioned that I'd like to at least get on a waiting list because I'd like to review it for the channel. Hey Dave, rotatable dipolar mag loop magnetic antenna. I would, if you want to rotate something, rotate the mag loop. The problem with the mag loop is that you cannot get enough bandwidth at a time to fill out your spectrum scope, because the tuning on the mag loop, and get one with remote tuning capability like the MFJ, and there are several others now that have that capability. I saw a new one in QST this month. You won't get enough for your spectrum. Now what you can do is put up one of those loop receive only antennas, run that in so that you can use that on receive and then use the mag loop to transmit. Or if you don't care about the spectrum scope, just go ahead and get the mag loop. The mag loop does have a very serious null and a line straight through it. Let me show you how that works here. Use purple because that comes first. So here's your mag loop, and if you send a signal right through the middle of it, this has a null, a very sharp, deep null. However, you can receive very well off the sides. Another thing you can do, if you're not curious about the other things, is you can mount the mag loop horizontally. So like if you've got a balcony railing here, you can mount this thing so that it's horizontal. So it has a vertical null, but it otherwise goes out in all directions. In this, you're mounting it on the balcony. If you're high enough up on the building, nobody will see it. Or, you know, it's something that you can do. Of course, the building itself acts as a backdrop to it. Your building, if it's concrete, will have rebar in it, in a mesh, and it'll be very difficult for your signal to get through. In this latest QST that just came out, there's a very interesting article by a graduate student of physics somewhere who did what in essence was a science fair project, where he rigged up a test range for UHF and VHF between two antennas pointed at each other, and then put various building materials in between to see how transparent they were to radio waves. It was quite an interesting article, and you can look at it. There are all sorts of scientific loopholes and so on, like going around it and so on, but still it gives you a very interesting comparative idea of which type of building materials will affect your signal and in which way. So I hope that helps about your idea of what to put in the attic. You don't need to put up a rotatable dipole. Dipoles in practice are supposed to have, you've got a dipole here and it's supposed to be this way and this way. But if you actually look down at the top of a dipole, okay, so this is a bird's eye view of your dipole, the actual radiation pattern is a little bit like this. A little bit in here and more out here, but it's pretty close to omnidirectional, really. In actual practice. Okay. Excuse me. Don't worry. I can assure you with 100% assurance you will not catch a virus through the live stream. Okay, so anyway, yes. Is there any way to test efficiency of an antenna other than KE0OGs? Well, no. There's a lot of what I would call folk knowledge, F-O-L-K, folk knowledge about antennas. Basically, you want to keep the radiation resistance up so that it swamps the resistance of the ohmic resistance. Now, this is a problem with magnetic loops because their radiation resistance is down around 3 or 4, maybe 5 ohms. And if you make it out of flimsy material, like ordinary coax or something like that, the ohmic resistance will swamp the radiation resistance and you won't get very much out. Dipoles are kind of the opposite. They have very high radiation resistance, very low ohmic resistance, and so most of the signal is radiated, which is very nice. Compromise antennas, everything from cobweb to buddy poles to anything that is compromised antenna, something hung really low and so on, and you're going to find that you're not going to get out very well. However, megaloops, if you have them tuned right, they will get out about as well as a dipole. I've tested that theory myself with the mag loop and switched back and forth between a dipole and can't tell the difference. The problem is if you move a few kilohertz, then you got to retune the mag loop. If you use a high Q like a whip with one of those hamstick loading coils, you have the same problem. It can work as well as a dipole, but only over a very narrow portion of the band. So you have to retune it or have another one for the lower frequencies. And that's about the best way to test them. Good old-fashioned wire antennas, full-size wire antennas, do remarkably well. Tony Brethnock, EI5EM, says, greetings from Dublin. Hello. And there is a message that was retracted from somebody in country with Cyrillic writing. And Skiball 2000 says, WW3 Ham, West Pennsylvania. Bill Malman says hi from Gray, Tennessee. Boyd from Hillsborough, North Carolina. Straight key month. Well, there's straight key night on the 31st. For some people who are doing SKCC, which is the Straight Key Century Club, every day is a Straight Key Club, but there is apparently a special event, CW stations, with K3Y, or KEY, key. Now, straight key generally means slower code. Okay, so it might be a good idea if you're going to do that, if you want to try a little bit of slower code. These are good chances to do it. Have you ever used the Isotron antenna from Balil? Yes, I have an Isotron 120, and it's sitting out there. And I tried it a little bit. I did not get a chance to give it a thorough examination. I was surprised that it performed at all, given that the antenna is only about this big. But it did perform. I did not have a good chance to compare it against the dipole. I owe you a review on that. I owe you a review on a lot of things. I've got piles of radios here from China. I got this interesting thing here, which is a VOM, volt ohm milliammeter, that does lots of other things. It looks like a smartphone, and it's very colorful and all that sort of thing. And I will compare that with the two other meters that I have, and we'll take a look at it. I've got this, of course, construction project to do on that. I've got several other kits to make. I picked up this book at Pacificon, and I'm reading through it, and I'm of two minds on it. I mean, he covers most areas of propagation. He does it in a very conversational way. I'm not sure I agree with all of his minutia type assertions. It's not done from a mathematical point of view. So I'm of two minds on the book. Is it a good book on propagation for beginners? May very well be. Will it give you a foundation for further study in propagation? No, it won't. But I've written books before too, so I know how hard it is to do it. Okay, Khalid Tara, yes, Jordan, in Amman, Jordan. And hello to all. Greetings from South Carolina, from Brandon, N4TBB. Guy Skier from Gig Harbor, Washington, KD6 RGZ. 10K Lakes equals Minnesota. Okay, not Michigan. I got that wrong. Minnesota. Got the M right, but that doesn't really count here, does it? Okay. Khalid says, God bless you. Neil Marsh from Mount St. Helens Country, W7NRN. NRNM. Whoops. It just went up a whole bunch. Okay. Felipe Lewis has sent $99.99, or in other words, $100 to the chat revenue, which goes into channel funds. The channel funds help fund things like shipping off the thing of the month. Now, this is a case where I was donated not by the manufacturer, but by another ham, a kit that's very hard to get. Some of these things I get for free. I've got another one of those big battery boxes coming, and I've got some radios here that I don't know why I got them, but I'll take a look at them anyway. And I was told I was being sent some MURS, M-U-R-S radios. I haven't seen those yet. When when Callum comes on Saturday, I turned him off yesterday. When Callum comes Saturday, we are going to kind of lay out a plan so we can get through these reviews, get to people's questions, and what I want to do. One Augie wrote, and his name will come to me in a moment, that I ought to have an Augie of the month. I'll get on with like Skype, and we'll do an interview and talk about his station and the pros and cons and what he's been doing and so on. So if you would like to volunteer for that, send me a postcard just like you do for the drawing. I look at them all, so I will read it. Felipe says, thanks for the live stream. Quick question. If you have two radios running two different mag loops with the same circumference but turned to a different frequency, will the two mag loops interfere or self-resonate? In the way two tuning forks of slightly different frequency can start to resonate together, they lock together. I do not know how far apart in frequency they would have to be to not do that, but I don't imagine it's more than about 10 kilohertz. Yeah, I mean, you can always try the experiment and see if they lock to each other. This is an interesting phenomenon with resonance. If you take a whole bunch of tuning, not tuning forks, but metronomes, like for music, the mechanical, this only works in the mechanical, and they're on very slightly different frequencies. Well, let's say you even put them on the same frequency, but they're all in different phases because you start them at different times. So they're tick-tocking all over the place. Eventually, and it doesn't take too long, they'll all start ticking together. And it's eerie to watch them all lock in together. So I would say keep your mag loops. I'm going to guess that 3 or 4 hertz is going to do it. Is there any place for straight AM bone anchors these days? Yes. 80 meters, around what, 3.8 to 3.9 megahertz? Correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but there's a big, strong AM following in there. Now, remember, with your single sideband rig, you can tune in an AM signal with single sideband, and it will sound perfectly good. Perfectly good. But if you try to transmit back to them, they will not be able to understand you. So single sideband will understand AM, and single sideband, AM will only understand AM. How come you don't need to run ground with doing portable, but you need to run ground when in your vehicle? Well, if you're just using a handheld in your vehicle, you're probably okay. I did that for a long time, then I put the magnet up on top. There really is no ground other than the vehicle's body, which gives you something for the antenna to work against. Let's see. Neil Marsh, far forensic instrument. I'm not sure what that is. So let's see, ground when you're doing portable. When you're doing portable, you can use your vehicle as quasi-ground. Counterpoise, if you will, because it's big and capacitive, and it takes quite a bit of time to charge it, and in that time signal's already gone to the opposite polarity, so it does act as a ground, sort of. If you're mobile, same type of thing. Use the vehicle or aircraft frame or whatever. And yes, my aircraft is in annual right now. I'm doing a lot to it. I'm hoping that there's enough money to pay them off when they're done. But they're fixing a lot of things that needed fixing. So my mag loop would be 50 feet high to know about using a ground plane or something like that. You don't need to use a ground plane with the mag loop. How far are the mag loops tuned apart? Same or different bands? Well, they'd have to be on the same bands if they're going to lock phase. One of the things is that one is transmitting to the other. They're both transmitting at the same time. There's no reception path back to the local oscillator that would make the two lock phase. Whereas if you have like mechanical metronomes, you get audio waves between them that causes them to phase lock. Okay. Built the new, there's a 6.1 micro BITX. Oh, not impressed with performance. You know what you can do on those? These have a lot of little toroids. If you figure out which toroid goes with which band, you can go play and move the windings apart and together and so on. You might be able to get more performance. In theory, they do that before they ship it to you, but I don't think they really do. Okay, Far West Missouri. Hello, Glenn. N0QFT. Anthony asks, since linear power supplies have an isolation transformer, do you feel that station ground should be the power supply ground, negative terminal, versus the house ground wire? Let me show you something on the whiteboard. You've got the coil. This goes to the neutral. This goes to the hot, which is black. Okay, this is the primary. And then there is ground. This is green wire ground. Okay, so you've got 1, 2, 3 plugs. This is attached to the chassis. Okay, then you've got the other that's coming in here. You've got a big, hairy pass transistor here. Okay, it's probably PNP. And then this goes out to the positive, and this goes to the negative, and the negative is connected to the chassis. Okay, so these are connected to each other. Okay, so this gives you your positive. Your negative is connected to the bottom of the transformer, and there's circuitry in there, very simple circuitry if it's a analog power supply. There's a little IC chip that costs about $1. I know, when my station was hit by lightning, it took out my power supply, and I had to replace that little chip. It was $1. And then the thing was back up. That was R35A, I think. No, it didn't have meters on it. So that's basically the circuit. This is, of course, a transformer 60 hertz. So the black wire here, and this is red. This black wire comes out green wire ground, is not connected to the neutral. The neutral goes back to the main household supply box, and it is connected to ground in one place only in your house, where these are connected together, and there is a ground rod there. That's at the utility entrance box. Otherwise, the neutral and green do not connect. If for some reason a neutral and a green connect, then you will flip what do they call those? It's the little automatic circuit breaker, ground fault isolator will trip. Okay. So the station ground will be the power supply ground, which also goes out to the green wire ground. But you want to ground it outside of the house, your station ground, to your utility ground, if you can at all, with number 6 gauge bare copper wire. The reason for bare is because it'll be buried and it'll actually act as sort of a ground in and of itself. Since linear, okay, Chris Wilson says you don't need a ground wave per se with a mag loop. However, you'll need a common mode choke at the feed. You may need a common mode choke at the feed. It is technically, the way it's built, a balanced feed for the mag loop. Universally, they are fed with coax. Okay, and often, and let me tell you that this is a very interesting thing here. You have a mag loop, which is a huge capacitor with a wire in a loop, and that's about 1 meter in diameter. Okay, this is a huge capacitor. If this thing puts out any power, the capacitor can be at the top or the bottom. You'll feed it at the other side. The feed loop is a small loop, and this is connected to your coax. So you've got the center conductor and the outer conductor here. Now this is obviously a balanced feed. Should there be some ferrite isolators or something like that on there? Yeah, there should, but I've never needed them myself in any of this. And the mag loop I've got, let's see, I've forgotten how many mag loops I have. I've got 3 receive only, 2 transmit, maybe 3. I've got the MFJ, I've got the one from Chameleon, I've got the Chameleon P loop. Now they aren't selling that one anymore. They're coming out or have come out with a new loop. And the Chameleon is designed to be for portable use because the tuner's right on the box and you have to turn that tuner with your hand. They use a big plastic knob so you don't get hand capacitance up in the thing. It's a pretty robust design, and so you tune it. So it's designed for portable use. You set the mag loop on the table, and it has a stand that you can set it on. I'd put some sandbags around it or something like that. It doesn't take much to knock that over. But then you can operate your little QRP rig and go like this and basically just tune it for max noise. And you're going to be very close when you get there. So, yeah, Chameleon makes mag loop now. These make 2. I think they just make 1 now. Chameleon really puts their heart and soul into what they do. I have to say about Chameleon that their construction quality is superb. And they sent me a Chameleon receive-only loop, which is way up on the top of the roof. It's the highest antenna I have right now. And they're sending, and I've tested it against the MFJ mag loop and against other antennas for reception ability. And it receives just as well as any dipole or vertical or other non-directional antenna. Now, they're coming out with a new preamp, in that, and they're going to send me the new preamp when they have a moment. And I'm going to test the old versus the new preamp and see what difference it makes. The question is, with the preamp, let me show you something. If you come down here to an antenna, and you've got an amplifier coming into the radio. This is the RF amplifier. Here's the problem. If you're trying to get extremely weak signals through here, like from the moon or radio astronomy or something like that, this antenna is at ambient temperature. Okay? In ambient temperature means that the electrons around a nucleus are gonna vibrate. They go to different energy states, they move around, so on and so forth, okay? A moving electrical charge, these are moving. A moving electrical charge creates a magnetic charge, okay? So just the normal thermal movement creates a magnetic, and the magnetic turns right around and creates current. Okay, so just the normal process of this being ambient temperature copper introduces noise. Now, if the signal you want is of comparable size to that noise, it's going to be very difficult to hear. So what you do is you put right at the feed point for the antenna, put an amp. Now this is either a parametric amp, or sometimes just known as a low noise amplifier, LNA. Okay, and these things add extremely small amounts of noise. The signal is amplified so that it's many, many times higher than the noise introduced by the ambient coax here. But you've got to do this right at the antenna, because if you do it down here, you've got all that ambient copper introducing noise. Now what the big boys do for radio astronomy is they will actually supercool these amplifiers down close to absolute zero. Now the amount of noise that is in here is multiplicative. So they use logs, and they use dB for the noise figure. Now the noise figure is the lowest signal that your system can detect just because of the noise. Now, for example, my I'll just pick this up here and punch that button and turn this over. Oops, it's behind the... You can see the thing with the green screen is my Tentec. I took the time to figure out the noise figure for that one time when I was doing a video on the noise figure. And the noise figure for that, according to the manual, is 11 dB. Well, it's not. I measured 13 dB. But what you want, if you're like trying to receive a signal from the moon, you want a noise figure of 2 or 3 dB, and less if you can. And that's where you have to go through all these special preamps and so on. Well, if you take one of these mag loops, it's just a loop, and you just run a coax from it into the house, the noise from the coax will swamp whatever signal it picks up. So that's why they put a preamp right at the base of the loop. And then 12 volts goes up there, or 5, depending on the amplifier, to power that. and then the signal comes down. It's amplified enough that the further noise added by what's called thermal noise will not affect it. So that's what's happening with these things, and they've got a new preamp, and I'm very interested to see what this looks for. Ground fault interrupter, yes. Let's see. There are bad Felipe Lewis, Peter Parker, VK3YE, yes, has a video on where he has used multiple mag loops on one frequency. That'd be very interesting to watch. I actually subscribe to him. And yes, his name is Peter Parker, although he's not Spider-Man. He is in training. A bunch, switch mode power supplies. Let me talk about switch mode power supplies. Switch mode power supplies are extremely innovative. They were invented in my lifetime. Okay? So I remember when they first came out, they were pretty crude. The idea being that, when I drew you the big transformer here, great big transformer, these things are huge, they weigh multiple pounds and so on. What you do to create a DC to DC converter or an AC to DC converter is you bring the system in through a full wave rectifier, whichever way the things go, I can never remember. Okay, and then you put it through a transistor, and this is driven by an oscillator at about 50 kilohertz, and you create a chopped waveform, square wave, at 50 kilohertz. Well, then you put this into a transformer. Now, as you know, as the frequency goes up, the size of the transformer to do the same job can go down, way down. That's why aircraft, not mine runs on 12 volt DC, but aircraft use 400 hertz electronics because you can get by with much smaller transformers for that. This right here goes through a transformer, which brings it to whatever it needs to be filtered, whatever, to go out. Now the problem is with this transistor is operating at 50 kilohertz. Now, because that is a square wave, you get 50 kilohertz, 150, let's see, add 50 twice, 250, whatever. You get the first, second, it'd be 100. You don't get the seconds, you just get the thirds. Anyway, you get a whole bunch of harmonics, and those harmonics will go right up into radio frequencies. So what you have to do for a ham radio switching power supply is suppress those harmonics to the point where they will not get into your radio. That is why I keep saying when you buy a power supply, get one made for ham radio. The power supply that is the reference station is the Samlex Power SEC 1235 M as in Mike. Okay, it's got meters on it. And that does not get into the radio. It's radio quiet. And I really recommend you not try to circumvent that. You can get power supplies that purport to be for radio, particularly of Chinese manufacturer, that when you plug them in, you'll wonder what on earth happened to your station. because it creates so much RF noise that you can't hear anything on your antennas. That RF noise will go right up to your operating frequency, will radiate from the power lines into your antenna and back into your radio. So that's why you want to use the good ones. Okay. There's a 1/2 inch thick pipe fence in a Poda Park, and it is at least 200 feet long. It's 4 feet above ground. Would it work on 20 meters when tuned, or would there be too much ground loss? Well, it depends on whether it's insulated or not. If it is a pipe that is used as part of a guide rail system, you don't want to use it as an antenna because you can actually shock people with it. If it's a water pipe, it's probably grounded on the far end. You can treat it a little bit like a beverage maybe for listening. I wouldn't try transmitting with something that's only 4 feet in the ground, but you can try it. Yeah, ground fault interrupter, thank you. Okay. Oh my. Would a mag loop be good for mobile RV use? Well, for RV use, yes. You can sit it on the top of or next to your RV. I've got a buddy pole in my RV that I use for that. 6 meter length of 1 inch aluminum tube with a 5 to 100 picofet capacitor will tune 7 through 21 with reasonable efficiency. Yes. The problem you get to, and we'll go back to the whiteboard here. Didn't think I'd be using the whiteboard this much, but here we go. Remember, I drew that huge capacitor, and then we have the feed loop down here. If you were to measure the voltage here, it's low. This is the lowest voltage. The voltage here is the highest. And these capacitors have to be able to withstand, if there's any power behind this, 500 to greater than 1,000 volts. That's why the high power ones have such giant capacitors in there with the plates far apart. It's because of the high voltage. You don't want to touch that, by the way. So now if you look at the Chameleon P loop, which I have, they use lower voltage capacitors that can handle a couple hundred volts. So you can't put more than about 20 or 30 watts into it. However, they have a weird thing that's actually just a flat capacitor, very high voltage capacitor that you can put on the thing, and it will help smooth out the capacitance on it. Works quite well. By the way, there's a little thing from the guy in Brazil that makes mag loops. It's a little clip-on. Put on the mag loop, it has an LED on it. And the LED will glow when the antenna is in tune, when you're transmitting. So, okay. Chris, I found it reduced the noise the receiver was picking up common mode noise on the KE0OG shield. Yeah, that's a good way to do things. Brazil is saying good night. Mag loops are interesting. There's quite an article in this month's QST, or rather February QST, saying that mag loops aren't mag loops. And I'm going, yeah, but we've always called them mag loops. A real mag loop should have an electrostatic shield around it. And I haven't seen one of those in ages. Ground fault circuit interrupter. Thank you. A van which isn't run like stealth camp. So C2 configure K, I get a truck full of liquid hydrogen. They do. That's what these guys do. But be very careful with that. That stuff's dangerous. The van will act as a Faraday shield, sort of. It depends on the frequency. Because if you're using HF, the wavelengths are too big to get through the small holes that are the windows. But if you're working VHF, they'll go out those windows just fine. Let's see, semiconductors do not work at very low temperatures. Yes, they do. They certainly do. But you might want to get the right ones. Okay, new to radio, I have my tech. Good, congratulations, Jesse. Looking for my second radio to get. Excuse me. Here's something to look at. This is the Anytone D878 UV. This is a very nice radio. As you can see, I'm still sick. Talked to my doctor today. He said it's probably going to take another week. Okay. Second radio to get, Baofeng HT. You could try that little Anytone. You get that from Bridgecom Systems. They're very good. They provide support. Okay. Heard people putting a long antenna on a trailer hitch. Yes. I've seen them. ICOM 7300. Did Jesse say he got his general? I understood that he had his tech. If you go to general, go to dcasler.com/reference, and that will show you a reference station to get for a general station. So far, Felipe is the only person who's provided chat revenue. Got to the bank for a loan. Megawatt, real one. Jesse, or you can build your own. Renfer 007 says, thanks for all you do for ham radio. It's from Fernando, thank you. Is the Samlex 1235 hooked up to your IC 7300? The answer is yes. Although I have solar power in my station, that's not part of the reference station. So I have built kind of a reference station within a station, if you will. So the ICOM 7300 replaced my great big Yaesu over there. And this is the radio I use. I figure if I'm going to tell people this is the reference station, then I want to have that myself, so I can answer questions about it. Vacuum capacitors also work well in in mag loop antennas. Where was it? Oh, that's in the QST. Where's QST? This is the January. The February QST hasn't hit print yet. All kinds of people advertising all kinds of things. That this one right here. Let me put this on the overhead. This is the mag loop I was talking about. It's got a remote tuner on it. Okay, it will handle up to full legal power. Okay, and the way it does it right here is it has this humongous vacuum capacitor that is motor driven on a screw to push it in and out. And it's got a rubber seal in there, rubber or some kind of plastic in there to keep the vacuum in. If air got in there, that thing would arc over in a heartbeat. Okay, so there's a stepper motor here so that you can get back to where you were. Now note that this thing right here is sensitive to temperature. So if you put it out in the desert like it shows here, and the sun comes up, it will change the tuning on this thing. And here you can see the feed loop that they put at top. And this is where they have all the other stuff. And then you need this plus a source of power so that it can send the commands to move this thing right here. I've actually thought of buying one of these to test it because it claims 1.5 kilowatt. That's quite a bit of power. Okay. So anyway, this is one that just showed up in the January QST. Okay. Fighting C19 too. It stinks. Yes. My doctor doesn't believe me, but I've had 2 at-home tests 2 or 3 days apart that have shown I don't have COVID. But wow, I have not had a cold like this in quite a long time. So let's see. Okay, Jesse says thank you for the radio recommendation, and there are lots out there. Oh, hi Trish, my sister is here. Sorry to hear that I'm sick, big brother. Yes, I am her only brother, as a matter of fact. I'm the firstborn, and then I have 4 sisters, 2 of which live in the Salt Lake area. Tricia's one of them. Say hi to everybody for me, Trish. Optical Man 1 Jeff KE0OG has added $15 to the chat revenue. Says thanks, Dave. Hope you feel better soon. Great show. Do you see anything new coming on the ham horizon? Well, one of the people who is coming to Quartz Fest is Ray Novak from ICOM. And I intend to pester him with that very same question to see if they have something that might be coming or new or different. The 7300 is getting a bit long in the tooth, but has been so successful that if I were ICOM, I wouldn't change it unless maybe update the software or something like that. But I'm going to ask him if there's a 7310 on the drawing board. We'll see. Life and Death says, like the Tide Pod challenge, let's see who can chug a pint of liquid oxygen fastest. Darwinian evolution. Yeah, it would take you about 2 seconds to kill yourself doing that, because it would freeze everything here and you wouldn't be able to breathe. Harry Rundle puts in $5 and says, thanks again for all the great info and comments. I learned much from your videos and live Q&A. Benjamin Otto says, in other words, dig deep, guys. What happened to this channel? Sometimes I don't even recognize it anymore. Benjamin, I'm not exactly sure what you're driving at. I know the whole fracas with the DX Commander antenna actually was good for the channel. Revenue's up. Views are up. Because people want to go, make up their own mind rather than take it from somebody else. The thing that bothers me most about that whole thing is people somehow do not see as legitimate my thinking that the antenna's fine, but I want to find out how good the instruction manual is. So I actually gave it to 2 people who didn't know anything to see if they could put it together. And the answer in the first case was no, but that was with version 1.16 of the manual. The answer in the second case was yes. That was with version 1.18 of the manual, which is the current version, I believe. And he got it up and he got it working. And he discovered in the process of putting it up that he had left out a few steps and so on. So we have the antenna lying out in the back porch waiting for spring. And we're going to put it together. Now, the snow issue, the snow stuff that litters the ground here, one of the problems with it is I can't do much with the antennas. And this comes just as a guy by the name of Cal, and it's not Callum, a guy named Cal, and I can't remember what it's short for, Cal from Australia has sent me a spiderweb antenna, something like that. And I really want to put the thing up because I'm very intrigued by it. It's a unity gain antenna designed for a small footprint in the backyard. And it's what videos I've seen of it show that it's a snap to put together. So that would be great. We'll see what we can do with this antenna. And I'm going to try. We don't have any snow on the back porch today. My Callum, comes on Saturday. And we've got to record we've got two things to do. We've got to record a bunch of videos, so we'll be taken care of through Porch Fest. And then at the same time, I want to start getting on these radios, on these kits, on these antennas, and things like that, and getting them up to date. Not sure I want to stand anywhere near a magnetic antenna running 1.5 kilowatts. Well, Stephen, I don't blame you. And if it were me, I would put that antenna up in the air. But think about it. If you run the numbers on it, if it's at a low frequency like 40 meters, you can be actually pretty close to the antenna without a problem. Is the mag loop similar to the old ISO loop? I think so. Not using a stepper, just a regular geared motor, and I manually tune with the Nano VNA. Good job. Good job. Todd, KY4TG, says, good evening, Dave and company. Chris Wilson says, I wouldn't, actually, run the numbers. Go on the League website and look up RF exposure. And you will find that for antennas below 20 meters and down to 80 meters and so on, you'd practically have to be biting the antenna to get any RF radiation out of it. I mean, you can get really close to the thing. Now you've got near field, and those calculators are based for far field. But I do have my antennas out away from me, away from the house, except one. 7310 with 2 meter 70 centimeter. I wish they would. JT6188 says he'll be at Quartz Fest 2022. I hope that we get to meet. I hope so too. There is a review from Precise RF on YouTube. Okay, Precise RF is the maker of it. Getting over the Flurona myself, Chris, I'm sorry. Wow. Still coughing up leprechauns. Yeah, it's gone the standard phases of the cold, the sore throat, and then the cough, and then the headaches, and then all this other kind of stuff. It doesn't seem serious enough. Of course, I'm 70 and diabetic, and all the usual stuff that comes with having lived a fairly easy life for a while. But I will be yes, and of course I wanted to mention that the airplane is coming along. I didn't realize this, but I remember one landing that one instructor and I did that was really hard. Now we came down on the main landing gear first. We didn't land on the front wheel, so we didn't damage the front wheel. But we couldn't find any problem with the aircraft, and it did not set off the ELT. But they took one look at that aircraft when they brought it in for its annual and says, "You've bent one of your landing gear." And it's the one on the right side. It's just a piece of spring steel that holds the thing up, but it got bent in that bad landing. So I guess the moral of the story is don't land badly. That's guaranteed. Perfectly matched. Oh. 75 ohm coax or 25 portable, worth getting one of those expensive adapters, or try building a 1.5 to 1 balance. Don't worry about it. Use your antenna tuner. It'll be fine. Omicron colonizes the throat about 3-4 days before the nasal passages. In the EU, they say swab both now because your nasal testing lags the many days and you are carrying. Okay. So you have a lot of free RG6 or RG11 cable service coax. You know, there is a school of thought that says use RG6. Do everything else the same, just use RG6. RG6 is 75 ohm cable, which probably has as good a chance of matching your antenna as does RG8X. The RG6 is dirt cheap. You can get it from building supplies at far less cost than the RG58 or RG8X. And it's something to look into. You're going to have trouble putting a proper connector on it, though. Or you could use an adapter between the F connectors and the and the coax connector, the F connector and the UHF connectors. Gary Murdoch adds $20 to the channel fund, saying, hope you feel better soon. Thanks for all you do for us Augies. You're certainly welcome. I feel for you. I bought an oximeter. This is an oximeter. Mine's an early one, so it's probably a little bit bigger. But it tells you your blood oxygen level, which you can see is 97 for me right now, and it's real good. 79 heartbeat, because I've been talking a lot. Okay. There are a number of comments for FT8 for the IC 7300 power should not exceed 25 watts. FT8 is not on for very long. Some people use 100 watts on FT8. I would recommend pushing that back a little bit. You're going to get a somewhat distorted signal out. Don't let the O2 numbers fool you. The Canon will vary 2 to 3 points. Is nothing unusual. Oh yeah, I know it can go anywhere from 91 to 98 or something like that. My doc told me if it went below 88, get to the hospital. But that would be for pneumonia. Worked around 400 and 600 volt motors. In these voltages, there is a corona that is not always visible. If you're grounded and connect with a corona or charge cloud, it is usually fatal. Yes, be very careful with those. Did you stall over the landing field? No, we just did not flare properly. So I'm better now. Flare first and sink. How fast can I do CW? Well, I did it at 20. I passed my 20 word per minute code test, barely, by the skin of my teeth. My code speed right now is about 10. Okay. Yes, we did walk away and it did work and all that. How about that guy in California who had to abort right after takeoff? And so he went and did what everybody did from Whiteman Airport, was land on the railroad tracks, because that's the only place around there that doesn't have a lot of obstacles. Well, he did that. And it was right across the street from a police station. And a whole bunch of cops came running out. And they heard the train coming. And so they went out there, grabbed the guy out of that airplane, pulled him about 20 feet away when the train came through, and just sent that aircraft flying. And on NBC News, Lester Holt, who's the newscaster for that, said, "I'd like to get his lottery numbers." That was a very lucky thing there. Okay, and Life and Death said, "I'm in touch with my daughter. She's an RRT at a leading trauma center. She's texting me 3 or 4 times a day to report back to her my condition." Yes, good. That is good that you do that. RG6U 75 ohm coax for my 2-meter radio. About 50 feet, it works great. Yeah, and it is far cheaper. I can send CW as fast as you can receive. Well, keep going. How is RG6 on noise screening? It's going to be the same as any inexpensive coax. It is an expensive coax. Did you try an EcoFlex 10 or 15? I'm not sure what that is. Sorry. I mean, how fast can I do? I can receive about 10. I can send 20 easy, but what's the point in sending faster than you can receive? Got a 1,000-foot spool of RG6 for $10. Yes, you can get it cheap. Yeah, overthinking it. When an earthquake occurs, or just before an earthquake, do the ham bands become affected? Is there any evidence of electromagnetic disturbances? Yes, there are. They're still being studied. Some of these conditions happen as much as 4 or 5 seconds prior to an earthquake. But if you're certain types of civil structures, 4 or 5 seconds of warning can make a big deal. But they've shown that a lot of animals can sense that an earthquake is coming and so on. If you want accurate and you need a pediatric grade oximeter, yeah, I'm not gonna, yeah. One of those cheap CW decoders you got on eBay, can't find a manual for it. I'm gonna have to look on the internet for it. By the way, I did my master's thesis on machine decoding of Morse code. And now I didn't have very good computers back in those days to run my simulations on. But the net of it was that machine decoding of Morse code is just downright difficult. It's a hard thing to do. The code, very simply, is and never was designed for computer type decoding. It was not even designed for human decoding. It was designed to mark a tape with dots and dashes, and then somebody would read those and mark the code letters on it. Well, people in the railroad code discovered that they could read it just by listening to the sounder. And of course that happened on radio too. The radio code that we use today, which is the International Telecommunications Alphabet number 1, is different from the railroad code. It is rather very much closer to the so-called Continental Code, which was used by German train operators. And it's different. The old Morse code actually has characters of 4 different lengths, whereas Morse code just has, as we practice it today, just has 2. But 4 different, there's lots of weird things. I'll have to do a video on the story of Morse code. Myball Wilson has added $50, says, "Thanks for all you do. Take care of yourself. Number 1, Augie." I appreciate that. Thank you very much. We're up to $190 in chat revenue. Piezoelectric. That was an answer to something. Yeah, you get that effect with the quartz when you vibrate it, it creates an electric current, which creates a magnetic field and so on. With straight key, I can send 15 words per minute clean. I got up to the point where I could send 20 words per minute clean, but I would prefer sending. I actually prefer sending with a paddle. I may not remember this, but he gave me a copy of his 1992 book, Fox on Adventure, great book. He also helped the nation track flood maps. Yes, that was part of my IBM work, was to work with FEMA. They handle the flood response in the nation, and as part of that, they create, for insurers primarily, flood hazard maps. And they wanted to redo how they made and kept track of those maps, and that was the project I was involved in. And I actually got to the point where I joined the American Society of Floodplain Managers. It was fun. It's fascinating topic, trying to predict in advance what areas will flood and so on. And insurance companies will not insure you if you live in a flood hazard area unless you get flood insurance. Normally, most people don't have flood insurance. Yeah, I've done quite a few interesting things over my life. I did write that book, Fox on Adventure. That was a long, long time ago, close to 30 years. Had to land once at KFFZ at the Crossfield Taxiway once. Did not have enough fuel to divert to an airport that was not having the same wind issues. Yeah. Our airport technically has 2 runways. At the main one, 3 and 21. And then perpendicular to that, there is a gravel runway that is supposedly the crosswind runway. Never landed on it. I will have to. It's part of my training. But I hope to get the training started again just as soon as this aircraft gets out of annual. Get back and do it. I've written other books too, by the way. Just bought an FT891. Any suggestions on an antenna tuner? Take a look at the MFJ993B. It's automatic. That's the one I've used with great luck for many years until I got this amplifier. And then the amplifier, the 993 goes up to 300 watts. And it's a 500 watt antenna or amplifier, so I need a 500 watt antenna tuner or more. And I don't have one. So rather than buy one, I just have fixed all my antennas so that the SWR and the part of the band I want to use is less than 1.5 to 1. And then I can use that amplifier without a tuner. Let's see. Amazing story of the plane landing on the railroad. Yes. Harrison Ford once made an emergency landing on a golf course. Says that's why he chose to land there. He says it's because that's where the doctors were. Manually done several types of serial communication. Morse code is very much not meant to be machine readable. That is true. The International Telegraphic Alphabet number 2, which is the Bowdoin-Murray code, is specifically designed to be machine interpreted. All characters are 5 digits, 1 or 0. 5 digits, and you send them with a start bit, a stop bit. Okay, machines are great at that. They know how long it's going to be, so they just set the pins, and that's what RIDI does. Set the pins, and then turn the crank, and out comes the letter. Okay, How long have I been learning? Oh, he was asking Ryan. LDG should be okay. Yes, LDG makes fine tuners. You've been learning Morse code. Let me tell you the fastest way to get your code speed up. Bar none. Get on the air. Get on the air with it. Because then you're actually talking to somebody. And so you've got to learn that in spite of your panic, you've got to decode this so you can talk back to the person. And so you'll go slow and the other person will go slow. And you can always ask for repeats. You can always say things like, if they send you their name, QTH and RST, you can say, did not get your QTH, please repeat. No problem with that. If you want to find slow code, 7065-ish, 7060, or 7110. You'll find slow code. Okay, let's see. I started learning code in college. Still learning it. Let's see. I must leave. He's on AEST. Would appreciate if you would review my question from earlier. Robert, what was that question? I missed it. Robert Bird. Let's see. Robert Bird. I'm sorry I missed a question. I try to catch the questions. Well, Robert, resend your question so I can get that. Or email it to me or something. First is the worst. Yes, that's true. But once you've done one on the air, I mean, that's like climbing Kilimanjaro, okay? After you climb Kilimanjaro, you can climb anything. It's that first one that's hard. Okay. First is the worst. Murray Baudot, paper tapes. Yeah, a lot of people learn to read those. In Japan, I learned a lot of Japanese fast. Okay, get on the air. Amen. Okay, I'm going to let you guys go early by 3 minutes because of my cold here. I absolutely promise. Now, this coming week, there is a very good chance there will be no live stream because I will be on the way to Quartz Fest. If I do a live stream, it'll be from the phone on the road. And then on the 27th, I'll be in Quartz Fest. It may or may not be a live stream, but I will not be able to give the giveaway number 6 because I won't have all the envelopes. So that will happen on the 3rd. So the live streams on the 20th and 27th are iffy. And the giveaway will be on the 3rd. That gives you guys an extra week to get your card or whatever you'd like to. Well, if you find a coder and decoder for Morse code, you can use a computer to decode Morse code if the Morse code is machine sent. And it's almost impossible to duplicate that with a hand key. With a keyer, you know, the two paddles, you can come a little close. But I put more than the normal spacing between my characters, just as a matter of habit. In my handset Morse code, the ratio between dits and das is nearly 1:6. I discovered that when playing with the oscilloscope one day. Okay, Helicopter Ops come. Love your channel. Thanks for the quality. Elmer work. Learned at age 15, then at age 16 discovered perfume and gasoline. Oh, yes. Where did G. Patton keep his armies? Okay, SKCC, Reiki Century Club. Yeah, and it's not skcc.org. You got to look up SKCC. get the rest of it. Okay, thank you all very much. It's been wonderful talking with you this evening. I apologize for all the coughing and everything that I did. It was kind of fun using the whiteboard again, and hopefully some of what we showed on the whiteboard was interesting and useful. And there won't be a video tomorrow. There will be a video on Saturday because Callum is coming over, and we'll make a bunch of videos, and I'll try and get with him next week as many times as I can. So I've stacked up here with things to make video about. The people in China are banging on me. Why haven't you done this yet? And I don't blame them. You know, they send it all the way from China, and it's expensive for them. And for me, it's a cheap radio, but for them, it's expensive. So, alrighty. So I will say goodbye to you all. I love you. I really love this group that we have. And I invite you to view the videos, to comment, to make suggestions. If you'd like to volunteer to be a ham of the month for this channel, send me a postcard, and I'll get in touch with you, and we'll see what we can do. I like the idea. I think it was Harry Rundle came up with the idea. Maybe I got that wrong. So don't quote me on that, unless that was right. So until we next meet, 73.